Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this, the second in 2 days webinars jointly organised by the Horizon Standardisation Booster and the Stand ICT 2026 project. Today's topic is an important one in the standardisation world and obviously for the circular economy. It's the digital product passport. So my name is Nick Ferguson, and I work for a company called Compla. We're an SME based in Pisa in Italy, and I'm a senior project manager and shareholder here, and I also coordinate the Horizon Standardisation Booster project. So this series of webinars that we're looking at brings together a lot of different topics. We try to, we've covered lots of different topics in standardization, from plastics, and also to areas related to human rights and standardization. If you attended yesterday's webinar, that was very interesting. Our objective in these webinars is to look at the regulations and the legislative landscape, and to look at what's happening in the area of standardization. Of course, with the digital product passport, we're at the stage where there is a standardization request in draft. So it's very interesting to find out what is going on in this area. Where are the standards that are being focused on? And we'll be hearing about the report which was published by Stand ICT Technical Working Group on this, which is very important to raise awareness on what activities are ongoing and what is planned as well, what's going on in the future. And understanding this interplay between regulation, standardization, and research and innovation, and where projects can fit in and contribute. So we'll be hearing about projects who are doing this, who've been supported by experts who are funded by the Standardization Booster, and understanding how they're able to take their research results and contribute to standardization. So the digital product passport is a key and topical area. The request is in draft phase, and the product passport is important. It's important for the circular economy. It's related to the various Commission objectives, including related to the Green Deal, and the importance of standardization for achieving this are very, very important in terms of consistency, uniformity, interoperability, and also quality and safety, which leads to trust and making these objectives sustainable. Today's agenda, we are joined by a number of speakers who come from different backgrounds and different perspectives. I mentioned the Stand ICT Digital Product Passport landscape analysis, and this has been a key document mentioned when the standardization request was draft request was launched. This was in a document which was very important for that. And then we'll also be hearing from different projects and different people working in the various technical committees which are addressing the priorities here. And we'll also be hearing about how important it is to get the research and innovation projects to contribute to standardization and the various opportunities that can bring. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. We have 86 people registered for today's webinar, which is truly fantastic. It's Friday afternoon as well. It's a sunny day, so thank you very much for joining us. And you can see the variety of people we have joining here on the slide there. So just a reminder, the booster is there to help researchers to improve expertise in the area of standardization and to help research projects take their results to contribute to standardization efforts in Europe. Standardization gives a wider array of opportunities to researchers, a whole new set of people and a whole new network for you to tap into, and really to increase the impact of your research results. We provide access to free support to researchers and enable you to meet standardization experts like the type of people who will be speaking today. So we have funding, and we fund the experts so that they're able to give recommendations and guidance through mentoring services, so one-to-one services for individual projects. They want to know the next steps they should take or establish a standardization strategy. Then they can get objective advice from the people who work in the standardization field. We also have an online tool, again, looking at strategy and helping you decide both at a proposal stage and also during the project on how to set your strategy. And the type of projects we deal with are those who are new to standardization, but also those who know exactly where they want to contribute to, but need a bit of help in terms of identifying who to speak to and how to do that. We also have funding for projects to purchase standards, to join national standardization bodies, and also to develop STEM workshop agreements, which are a nice facility to help projects get their results into the standardization process. In addition, we have a very, very strong and very full training academy, which provides courses on various types of standardization information, from understanding the landscape to more practical things like how do you participate, how do you join the technical committee. And we also have a board game which is making quite a bit of impact in helping people understand how they can improve their negotiation skills in a standardization meeting. So this is called the Serious Smiley Game, and you can find out more about that on our website, but that's really proving to be an interesting topic. Now, Sultan will talk a little bit later in more detail on some of these points, and you know that our open call remains open. Projects can apply. We have many topics that go on to 3 levels below these high-level topics. And so there's plenty of areas where you can apply and get support for your standardization activities. I mentioned a webinar yesterday, which will be online soon for you to watch. It was about the importance of human rights in standardization. This covers areas of privacy, covers areas related to climate change. It covers a lot of areas, and that was very interesting. So you should take a listen to that. And then we have further events. These are 2 which are coming up in June. One related to training and how you can develop, disseminate, and access terminology related to development, dissemination, accessibility on and the impact on national culture. And we also will be at the URAS event where there's going to be a Stand ICT workshop where looking at reinforcing European presence in international standardization landscape. So and HS Booster will also be there with the training academy and the Serious Smiley Game. So with that, I'd like to close my slides, and I'd like to hand over to the first speaker, which is Jens Jacob, who, as I've mentioned this a couple of times, was one of the main authors of the Stand ICT report on landscape report on standardization for the digital product passport. So over to you, Jens. Thank you.
Jetzt, du bist stumm.
Yeah, Jens, I'm afraid you're muted, Jens.
Oh, indeed. Sorry.
There you go.
Obviously.
Thanks.
Sorry. Okay, thanks, Nick. Yeah. So yeah, indeed, I'm going to talk about the Stand ICT landscape report on digital product passport, but also on the EU-funded project Surpass 1 and Surpass 2. Yeah, as you indicated, I'm Jens Geiko, Managing Director of Standardization Council Industry 4.0. So let me see where my mouse pointer is. So let's start. Why do we talk about the digital product passport? So the digital product passport is a concept which is in the, let's say, publications in Brussels since a few years. Whether it's called electronic product passport or something or similar terms. And since about 2 years, since March 2022, we have a legislative proposal from the EU Commission on the Ecodesign requirements for sustainable product regulation. And this, or called ESPR. And this ESPR clearly requires a digital product passport. So this, as you can see, is a slide I copied from the EU Commission quite recently because they have a well explanation what is the digital product passport. So I use this one. So it's an integral part of the ESPR, and it's will be beside the ESPR, it will be also included into a growing number of EU policies. So what we see right now with the ESPR will be a kind of starting point, but we expect that it will also be expanded to other projects. So battery regulation is already decided because battery regulation is already adopted, but others here like toys regulation, detergents, and so on, these are still in the development or negotiation phase, but it's very likely that these regulations will also adopt the concept of the DPP. And as Nick mentioned in the introduction, so DPP, Digital Product Passport, will be a very important tool for the coming years. And I guess it will be very relevant for many, many stakeholders in Europe. So the DPP will simplify digital access to product-specific information. And in the first step, it will be related to sustainability, circularity, and legal compliance. And when we here say sustainability, it means ecological sustainability. Maybe later it will be extended also to social sustainability, but in the beginning it will be ecological sustainability. So there will be a data set as defined in the ESPR. This data set can be accessed in an electronic and standardized way. So to speak practically, very likely you will have a specific DPP app on your smartphone in the future, but there's no need to have dozens of DPP apps from each manufacturer where you own the product. But maybe you have one DPP app, and with this one you can access to all the information. Again, slides from the EU Commission. Why is it relevant for standardization? Well, as Nick introduced already, interoperability is very important, safety, trust, and all these elements. And these are elements which call for standardization. And very early, the EU Commission announced that the so-called DPP system, so how the information exchange will be done, will be described in standards, and there will be a standardization request covering these 8 topics, which are shown here on the slide on the left side on the bottom. The DPP data, so what information needs to be included in the DPP. This will be done via legislation because that's a decision of the policymakers to decide whether you need to, for example, product carbon footprint for a specific product, or whether you need substances of concern and so on. So this is a regulatory decision, and therefore the legislator will take care of this. But here on the left side, we will see standards coming. Again, here I build up my presentation along the timeline. As I said, we start March 2 years ago with the ESPR proposal, and the plan is to have the adoption of DPP for first products in 2027, which is not too far from today if you think about that. Probably hundreds, thousands, or even millions of SMEs need to adopt their internal processes to be ready to provide DPPs. Very early, as I said, the Commission said there will be standardization will play a role, and then they started with the landscaping, and they asked ICT to do a landscaping analysis and publish this in a report. So ICT was asked, and together with Benjamin Helfritz from DIN in Germany, we volunteered to lead this group, and we set up a team of about 15-20 experts from different countries and also different focus areas within standardization to prepare this landscape report, and we collected about 260 potentially relevant standards for DPP. I said potentially because maybe later on we see we do not need all of them, but first of all we started with a wide collection. The landscaping report was published in March last year, and here is the link of this presentation, and I'm pretty sure it can be shared to the audience as well. In parallel to that, the EU Commission sent out a call for so-called coordination and support action. Coordination and support action is a specific type of EU project, so it's not a technology research project, but it's more, as the name said, to coordinate and support, so to provide reports on the existing status and to provide proposals, but not to implement technology. This CSA call was launched, and a consortium with the name SURPASS won this call, and the project started in October 2022, and with an 18-month duration. The coordinator is CER in France, and also we are partners of this project, or we have been partners of this project besides 30 other partners. So the project ended end of March this year. And provided also useful input into this one. Here you can see an overview of the partners, and as you see, there have been three main topic areas. One is batteries, electronics, and textiles. So some of the partners can be assigned to these sectors, but also you have cross-cutting expertise in research, but also in standard circular economy, and also from solution providers. Here is one example of the components identified by the SURPASS consortium for such a project. And the results of this project are reports, which some of them are already publicly available, and some are in the final review process, and they will be published soon. And of course, they serve also as a basis. And the Stand ICT landscaping report was an important input because, of course, to avoid double work, this report was used and further developed. After SURPASS was finalized, a second call was, or before that, basically a second call was launched by the EU Commission with a more practical approach. So here the idea is to support pilot implementations of DPP systems, because this is important to implement and ramp up the DPP rollout in a few years. And here a new consortium found, but this was the basis was the SURPASS 1 consortium, and then some partners from SURPASS 1 left the consortium, but new partners joined. And then we called it SURPASS 2. And again, this consortium was successful to get the grant. And 1st of May, SURPASS 2 started, and we had a kickoff mid of May in Brussels. In parallel, so you see here on the top line, another call-out box is this adoption of the ESPR. So last month, finally, the ESPR has been passed through this EU process. So in April, the EU Parliament voted in favor of the ESPR, and then finally the EU Council also voted in favor of this one. So it is now in the final publishing phase. And according to the news I got from the EU Commission, it will be published within the next weeks, and then it will be available in the official journal. So beginning of the week, I checked it, so I haven't seen it. So here is the logo of SURPASS 2 is slightly different than the logo from SURPASS 1, but very similar. And as you see here, the focus is much more enables at scale and real life circular economy. Also, the areas changed. So we have electronics, textile, tires, construction value chains, because batteries are already going into the implementing phase. And as I said, the focus is more on the scaling, on the upscaling, and the real-life implementations of this one. Here you see some key figures of the project. It's in that case, it's an innovation action. Again, CR from France is the project coordinator, and the project duration is from May this year until April 2027, which is the year where the first products will be on the market with the DPP. The objectives are to deploy and validate at scale and real-life settings of the DPP in the 4 target value chains, as mentioned before, and the focus is on B2B activities to promote circularity. And in parallel, also highlighted here is to support the standardization process at the European Standardization Organization and CENELEC. Also, further objectives are to demonstrate cross-pilot interoperability and to provide support to small and medium-sized enterprises. As I said, this will be one of the major challenges as well. And also to support the deployment and adoption of DPP by other sectors targeted by upcoming regulations. I suggest to have the Q&A later on, because otherwise it's a little bit disturbing. So, except there is a major problem in the slides. The problems trying to solve of this project is much more on the supply chain, as you can see here on this slide. So here it is important that how the industry can agree on common DPP system, which is compliant to the requirements of ESPR, and also support the requirements from the industry. And also a second question is, how can the industries agree on a flexible DPP system which is capable to support beyond mandatory data exchange to enable new circular economy business models? Because the DPP is also seen as a tool to kickstart or to support digital circular business models. Within SURPASS 2, there will be so-called expert working groups, 5 in total. I highlighted one of them, which is the one on standardization liaison. So here you can see my name again, also together with Benjamin Helfrich, again from DIN. We are leading this expert working group on standardization liaison. So if there is an interest to join this group, so you are welcome to contact me. Yeah, here basically again the expert working groups is enable easy-to-way communication to the outside and support the dissemination. The commitment is, as you see here, if you volunteer for them, it's not just to get the information, but also to contribute. So the idea is within this 3 years from now, we expect 10 to 20 person days over the 3 years, and also some optional in-person meetings. So not just raising the hand and to get the information is not the purpose of that expert working group. For this purpose, there will be publications from SURPASS 2, but if you want to contribute, also this group might be of interest for you. Coming back to the timeline, as we said, we are right now here in the phase where the ESPR is adopted. SURPASS 1 is finished, SURPASS 2 has started, and now coming to standardization. As mentioned earlier, there will be a standardization request on the digital product passport. Here again, in about 1 year ago, a little bit more than 1 year ago, a draft standardization request on DPP was published, and that was in a well-established way negotiated with European standardization organizations. And here again, we are in the phase that this standardization request on DPP is finally is negotiated, and all the votings on the EU Commission side as well as on the standardization side at CEN and CENELEC have been positive, but it's not yet finally published in the official journal. We expect that this will be done also quite soon, within the next weeks. And in parallel already, let's see a little bit earlier than that, Sen and Senelec sat together and said we probably need a new technical committee, and in that case, a joint technical committee, JTC 24 on the TPP. This one was already set up. Later on, we will hear the chair of this JTC 24, Thomas Knote, and this JTC 24 has the task to answer and coordinate the answering of this EU standardization request TPP. Besides that, we do not start from zero. As in the beginning, the initial was the landscaping report. As I said, there are already 260 standards which are potentially of interest for TPP, and this is here ongoing work since many years. So luckily we do not need to start from scratch. We have a lot of existing standards, and also in the industry there is already a lot of experience with these standards. So we are very much looking forward that we will have a successful launch of TPP and adoption here in 2027, as said in the beginning. With that, I come to the end of my presentation. And yeah, if there are any questions, then maybe we have a few minutes right now, or later on we have the panel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jens. That was really interesting. It's very important to understand, how these things proceed, because they do take a lot of time with a lot of different people contributing as well. So thank you very much, Jens, for that. So we do have 3 questions actually in the chat, and we have a couple of minutes to look at them. The first one that came through is from Martin Verboom, who's asking, is the EU aligning with UNTP? So the UN Transparency Protocol.
At least they are aware of that, I can say. So during the kickoff of Surplus 2 last month, there was a presentation from UNTP and also already earlier. And in the landscaping report, we have also some UN, like as UN CFACT standards included. So it is aware of them. Personally, I have to find out on which level it is. Typically, the UN activities are more on a higher, more abstract level. So, but this is something we are aware of, and we need to make sure that this is consistent and not contradicting. Yeah.
Thanks very much. I hope that's answered your question, Martin. So next one is from Dr. Bernard Gindras, who's chair of ISO TC Technical Committee 268. This is an interesting question: is what will the first product? What will be the first products considered and planned for a digital product passport in 2027?
The first product will be the batteries from a certain amount of energy, like traction batteries or batteries for solar photovoltaic power storage, and this is via the battery regulation, and so this is decided. The other process, the other product categories will be decided by the EU Commission in so-called delegated acts. Formally, this will start after the formal publication of the ESPR. What we see right now is there is a kind of list of priority topics. Very likely it will be textiles, what is electronics in terms of power related or energy related products, and very likely steel. As I said, also the toys regulation is in the pipeline. So this will be very likely covered via toys regulation. Here I don't have detailed information how the schedule, the plan for the toys regulation is. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Jens. So there's a couple of questions in the Q&A box, and for the participants, if you can add your questions in the Q&A box, because there's one I see in the chat about timing for when the Sen and Senelec must provide information regarding the selected protocols. So maybe Maria, if you could put Floren's question in the Q&A, then we can also answer those
Yeah.
directly.
So the deadline of the standardization request is end of 2025, which is of course quite ambitious. So there basically the technical details should be fixed. Maybe coming back to the product. So the initial plan from the EU Commission is to have not all product categories by one, but to have lots of product categories, maybe something like 5 to 10 product categories per year. And so it's expected to have within a time frame of maybe 5 years, plus minus more or less all products covered, which at the same time means that all companies placing products into the EU market need to be prepared to provide DPPs sooner or later. Now you are.
Thank you very much. I'm muted. Talking to myself. Thank you very much, Jens. That was very interesting and full of information. Thank you. So
thank you.
Okay, we're now going to move to our second speaker, which is Karin Ufinger. Now, the digital product passport, we've talked from a legislative and a standardization request point of view. Now let's find an example. What type of products are and what type of materials are going to be focused on with the digital product passport. So Karin is going to talk about the textile and floor covering industry. So this is really interesting how this will be applied in real areas of industry, and how this affects the many people along the supply chains for these type of products. So Karin, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think I can already share my screen. Is everybody seeing the correct screen?
Yeah, we can see it fine. Thank you.
Well, I practiced before, but one never knows. Okay, today I will talk a bit about, how will that be implemented in the textile and floor covering industry? And since we're talking also about the link between standardization and research projects, I will also be addressing on the one side how some research projects are trying to tackle the issue, and also how standardization committees are already working on this, and also how what is the status of the two linking, because I think this would be especially interesting. Well, I think I need my mouse. Yes. So first, I would like to just briefly introduce you to what do I mean by textiles and which floor coverings will I be covering here. If you really want to know what kind of textile and textile products are out there, I would like to invite you to look at the link to the Techtextilmesse Frankfurt. I picked all these logos from their screen, and for each logo you can look at a short video giving you an overview and short samples of all the different textiles that fall under that category. I've picked out a few. You can see a big bag for transporting, for example, recyclates. The others is some gloves, smart gloves, which you can manage the heating by an app on your phone. We have agro-textiles. You see here some non-woven netting that is covering some crops, and we have seats. I left out the clothing because that's what everybody thinks of when we talk about textiles. So just to show you that this goes much broader. So for floor coverings, I will be not discussing stones and terracotta, etc., but I will focus also on textile, as I already mentioned, resilient, laminate, and multi-layer modular flooring, because that's also then the CEN/TC I will be talking about. And for the textiles, I need to mention that all the floor coverings I will be discussing are wall-to-wall, because those would be considered construction products. Rugs and runners for the textiles I'm not considering, because these are considered normal textile products. So legal provisions, as I already mentioned, textiles, they will fall under the Ecodesign regulation. There's some other legislations also applicable to textiles, but if we're talking about the digital product passports, this will be the main one that you need to apply for textiles. I'm not going to repeat it. You've already seen it with a previous speaker. I just put the link in where I found this definition. Floor coverings, on the other hand, will be falling under the construction products regulation. And there this document was also published in April or passed by a council. The publication is still pending, where they refer to the Ecodesign legislation, but there will be some specificalities that will be added inside the construction products regulation themselves or by delegated acts. So if you want to look at the more detailed text, I also provided the link here. So coming back to the construction products, you will need several different documents. You will have the declaration of performance, the declaration of conformity, and other information, including the digital product passport. And they are actually aiming to merge all this documentation into one. So to now come back again to the research projects. I wanted to just repeat this slide to let you know which part of the DPP infrastructure I will be talking on. Jens talked previously about the system and the IT architecture behind it, and a bit more the general layout. While the research projects I will be discussing on the standardization developments, which are product specific, and will be more concerned on the data, how to collect it, where to store it, how to make it accessible. Also, to come back to it, the management of the data, it has to be stored and made accessible somewhere. For the moment, there seem to be 3 possible scenarios. We will have the first proposal was, or the first hope was that the Commission could have a centralized database over which they then have control, but it proved to be a bit too complex and also rather costly. So that they're looking also into have licensed service providers, or that each manufacturer will have his own database or website where the data is kept. And especially with the third option, one has to, of course, be sure if a manufacturer goes bankrupt or has to stop his activities. The data needs to remain available, maybe not so much for clothing, you would think, but also there people can keep some items can be kept longer, but especially the floor coverings, you have to think they will be 10, 20, maybe 30 years in the building. And after all that time, you will still have to be able to access the information. So for the construction products, one is looking into number 2 on the second or the third scenario, while for textiles, probably the most likely scenario could be 3. So research projects are then also focusing on finding solutions for these 2 scenarios. The first project I want to briefly talk about, I saw that some colleagues from the project are present, so since I only joined the activities rather recently, please don't, if I say something wrong, don't hesitate to correct me. But the concept here is to use an innovative tracking and sensing sorting techniques to develop a transparent and interoperable decentralized platform. And they would also like to focus on dynamically updated DPP schemes, which will support the certification, quality validation, AI-based decision-making mechanisms, all towards like lifecycle optimism, upcycling, reuse, etc. They are working on composite wood and furniture, wood and pulp, paper, plastic parts, also textiles. I just had one remark here. Normally, when you have dynamic schemes, I know that that's always a bit of a problem. If towards legal certainty, which the EC and member states require, I know it's a very nice system to keep it dynamic when your product development is dynamic. But I would be interested to hear what the Commission will think about it. Then we have the project Textended. Here word product passport is not really mentioned inside their scope, but they are looking for digital and technological solutions enabling the replicability of solutions and the implementing of a circular textile ecosystem. This is basically some research that will collect the basic information needed to later on then have develop your criteria for the product passport, also how to collect the data, etc. And additionally, they will be developing testing and evaluation criteria for assessing circularity, which is also quite important input. Oh, sorry, my mouse. Yes, then we have SISIFlow, which is, I think I missed one. No, sorry. SISIFlow, which is focusing on the floor covering industry. They're looking also again for a circular systemic framework for circular and sustainable floor coverings. And here they're working on eProdus. It's an integrated product information system, where they also want to link an electronic product passport on there. So the eProdus will have a database plus a tag on the product, which can then interact with the database. And then we have SISUTAC, also a project with a lot of different goals. And again, they are looking into enabling technologies for circular textiles by using advanced digital solutions and also digital infrastructures for developing those. So again, work supporting more from the backgrounds, the product passport. So I would then like to come to the standards development. On the textile side, the important working group under the Technical Committee of Textiles and Textile Products, Working Group 39 for Circular Economy for Textile Products in the textile chain. They cooperate with their ISO sister TC 38 textiles and the Working Group 35 environmental aspects. The first publication was common, just for vocabulary. Vocabulary is always a very important basis so that you know in later documents what you're talking about and have a common language. And if you look at their current work program, it again does not yet have the digital product passport in there. That project has been put on hold because they will need to solve or write these documents which are listed here. Some general principles and guidance, minimum requirements for clothing, meaning what properties do you have towards durability, mechanical durability, chemical durability, wearability, etc., so that they can last a bit longer. Also for requirements from non-virgin input materials, meaning recycled materials. And then also a design for circularity. How do you have to design your product that it can be kept longer, not only towards its minimum durability requirements, but also that you can repair it, replace parts, etc. And as I mentioned, they already have the planning then to add one later on the digital product passport as soon as also more information from the Commission was available. For the floor coverings, I'm listing there you have, that's the SEM Technical Committee 134, Resilient Textile Laminate and Modular Mechanical Locked Floor Coverings. We have a working group harmonization because it deals with standards applicable to all 4 products. And there we have already had one publication. I'm now only doing the ones related to circular economy and the digital product passport. Again, terms and definitions, kind of making a list of already existing ones, modifying them if needed towards floor coverings. That was published last year. And in the current work program, there's a document under approval, recommendations and guidelines for design for circular economy and sustainability. And here we're also actually developing a document for floor coverings and underlay passports. So we were actually anticipating a bit what would be the information needed, and how should one deal with collecting the information when the question arises legislatively as well. That brings me then to the cooperation between standardization and research. First, some general aspects. You have the option of having a project liaison, a direct and official link between you can even have it with an ISO TC and the research project. The project then can send a representative to participate in the work. And it can also be that you are asked to provide an update of your project, of relevant issues in your project at meetings. You can also then exchange documents between your project and the committee and under the terms of the liaison agreement. You also have a second option, which was already mentioned before in the first presentation by the AHS booster. You can have an expert from the research project participating in the work of the committee as a nationally nominated expert. The national expert can then also participate in the work and can provide an update on the project or meetings. And in your project, you can also provide a bit of an update from the committee. But there you don't have this agreement, or you don't have a fixed agreement on exchanging documents. You'll have to do it case by case. So what do I already have? We have one very well-running example, and that is the project SISIFLOW interacting with CEN/TC 134. We established a liaison quite at the beginning of the project. Also, several project partners are already experts in the different working groups, also especially in working group 10 of the CEN/TC 134. There's a report from the project at the TC meetings, and also where relevant project results are presented. They can also be presented at working group 10 meetings. Standards under development that are relevant to the project, on the other hand, are also presented at the project meetings. So in conclusion, we have here a really well-structured and maintained exchange between this research project and the standardization committee. We have knowledge on standardization in European legislation, including also ongoing developments present in the research consortium. And this supports also actually that in your research project that you are going in the direction that will be then supporting EU legislation and also supporting the industry to comply with it by helping with developing the standards. So I would like to point out that this link is really important. I'm in a way doing both. I used to be a researcher and then moved on to standards development. And now I'm participating also internally in research projects to make sure that there is an information flow from the two directions, because there is if that synergy is good, you can have quite some good results. And that basically concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Karin. That was really interesting, in particular the message at the end there about the importance of the flow of information and the flow of results from the research community to the standardization community. And it's very interesting you've gone from research and you're now contributing to standardization as well. So the link between the two is vital. And it's a priority within the standardization strategy that projects do look into how they can contribute and address the standardization priorities in Europe. So thank you very much, Karin. That was wonderful. So I'd like now to, with that, because it's very fitting, because with that, I'd like to hand over to Sultan, who works for Dansk, so the Danish National Standards Organization, and And Danske, of course, are a partner within the Horizon Standardization Booster project. Sultan is going to talk a bit more about this transfer of knowledge and results and findings to contributing to standardization activities. So Sultan, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Before taking the floor here, I would just like to know if we should go ahead with some of the questions that are posed in the Q&A, or if we should continue with my presentation.
Yeah, I think we should continue, because I don't think there was anything very specific, unless I'm wrong, to Karine. But I think with time, I think it would be good if we could continue. And then, of course, for the speakers, if you can feel free to answer the questions in the Q&A box, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sounds great. Give me a second. So. I'll just start sharing my screen. So how does it look to you? Is it in presentation mode, or?
I don't see a screen.
No?
No, I can't see it, I'm afraid.
Is it? Let me just see.
Okay, it's coming now. Yeah, that's great. We can see it now.
Just a second.
But we see some comments underneath, I
Yeah,
think.
that's weird. I don't know where those comments, why they appear. Just a second. Let me try one more time. I have no idea where they come from.
It's a closed caption.
Yeah, haven't tried that before. And you see the presentation mode, right?
No, we see now only the
screen, right?
The presenter's view normally. But I think you turned on some closed captions or something.
That's weird.
I can share, Sultan, if you want. Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Let me just try one more time. Just a second, because I did some minor updates in the presentation just before. Just a second. I'm so sorry for the delay. This always happens just before. Let's see here. I'm just going to do like this, and here we go. So how does this look?
That's good, I think.
Yeah, you can see.
That's great. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so sorry for the delay. This will be a short intermezzo kind of presentation before I hand it over to Thomas Knode afterwards. But again, as Nick just introduced you, my name is Sultan Wood. I work as a standardization consultant at the Danish Standards International Politics Department. So I'll like to speak to you about HS Booster, also some of the details that Nick didn't mention, and why HS Booster is important for incorporating research into standardization, and why we would like to bridge the gap between research and innovation and standardization. So HS Booster is launched by the European Commission and is strongly linked to the standardization strategy, which was released in February 2022, and the EU Code of Conduct also from March 2023. So it's directly linked to this strategy of wanting to boost standardization in the research that is happening on a European level. So it's a pilot project in the sense that it the HS Booster is to test to see if this strategy is something that is valuable to the European Commission, the way that HS Booster works in incorporating projects into standardization. So it's set until September 2024, and it consists of Danish Standards, Trust IT, University of Belgrade, Dublin City University, and STS. And the foundation of this HS Booster is to give a free support service for projects, mainly from Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe projects, and research and innovation projects on a European level. So as Nick also mentioned, I'm not going to go into further detail with that, but HS Booster presents various support levels that are really tailored to the projects and the project's needs. So we both have tools on the HS Booster webpage, but also on these one-to-one consultancy services that are delivered by experts that are on board the HS Booster project and service. Just a second. So what is the aim of HS Booster? First of all, it is to increase the participation of researchers in standardization activities. And this is also to embed standardization into some of the ground research that we see being developed on a European level. And the idea is to develop new standards or standard deliverables, but also to revise existing standards and standards deliverables. The aim is also to create a stronger link between research and innovation and standardization. And as I've said, incorporate newly developed standardization in early research phases. The idea is also to disseminate new technologies that appear from research projects to further develop upcoming standards in the future, and also to respond to new industrial and market conditions. That is the conditions that are going to set the future impact of standards. Let's see if this wants to change. Yes. So first of all, in this project, we would like to get in touch with the EU projects. So what HS Booster does is to offer guidance on how to use standards proactively and also how to engage in standardization processes. So Karen already gave you an example of how that could look like if you're a research project, in parallel to if it is a project representative who engages in standardization processes. So engaging in standardization processes can both be active, but also on a more observatory level. In HS Booster, we have an emphasis on selected research and innovation areas, so topics that we have chosen that we put an emphasis on in terms of the projects that we can guide. And these are based on the EU Commission's focus topics. So we are highly aligned with the newest EU legislation and the development that is happening there. So the EU projects that we want to onboard the HS Booster and which we want to offer this guidance to can apply for various open calls, and they are open, so they are continuously active. And these are also displayed here. So as Nick also mentioned, we have these overarching categories: health, sustainable digitalization, EU green transition, resilience, and smart city and circular economy. And these are further detailed into pandemics, data quality and artificial intelligence, clean energy, robust supply chains, and circular economy. And further, we have an even finer category of topics that you can apply for. So the reason why we have done it like this with these topics is to be able to ensure that each project gets the right expert. So we match the projects with experts that are on board the HS Booster service, so you can get a tailored guidance and a tailored assistance throughout the time where you have the support service in HS Booster. So in HS Booster, we also have standardization experts, and what do? They give the guidance to the EU projects that have applied to these mentioned open calls. Topics that are being delved into are access to and usage of standards and standards deliverables, standardization processes, how to gain access to technical committees, harmonized standards, what are they, and what is the purpose of harmonized standards, how are they made, and what is the impact of these standards, legislations, and standardization requests. These are just some of the topics that the experts do help with. And also access to standardization resources. So this is also some of the resources that the experts can give access to. And they are individually matched to each project. So we ensure that there's a direct line of a topic interest from the project to the expert. So one complete service by the expert typically consists of 2 to 4 online meetings with the projects, typically an hour duration of a maximum 4 months. So what this takes is the time that that the project will need to use for these services, and this corresponds to approximately 2 full working days per one complete service delivery. And for the experts, they receive 800 euros per completed service, depending on how long it takes for the experts. So just to sum up, for the projects, what do they gain from this? Free advice and guidance about standardization strategy that is tailored to the project. Influence on future standards based on the research that is going on in the project. And how to convert research and innovation into market-relevant products through the use of standards, because this is something that we've realized in HS Booster, that there is a gap between how to engage in standardization, but also how to make standards work for the purposes of the projects. And for the experts, they gain recognition as an expert in the EU Commission pool of experts. They become part of an expert database with networks and international connections, and it's possible for the experts to bring the qualitative capital into their own research and the business life, and the knowledge and experience they gain from becoming an expert within the HS Booster pool of experts. So to sum up, at this moment, we are on the lookout for projects who would like to receive free of charge services through HS Booster. And in terms of a digital product passport, we would also like to hopefully to see more experts who would like to give the guidance for the EU projects. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sultan. That's great. Thank you very much for those. Yeah, very important. Lots of opportunities, both for projects and for those people who are working in the standardization technical committees and various working groups. So next up, we're going to hear from one of those people. It's Thomas Knott, who will be providing an update on what JTC 24 is doing. This is one of the technical committees which is addressing the standardization request. So we'd like to hear from you, Thomas, an update on this in the area of batteries within the digital product passport work. So I hand over to you, Thomas.
Thank you so much, Nick. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can, yeah.
So just to introduce myself, I'm Thomas Knote, and now representing 3 items. One is my origin. This is Fraunhofer IPK, is Institute for Production System and Design Technology here in Berlin, and dealing mainly with interoperability in manufacturing. On the other hand, I'm currently the JTC chair for the JTC 24, the Digital Product Passport Framework and System. I will come later to that. And in parallel, we are operating the Battery Pass project, which is supported by German government to piloting at least the foundations of the passport. So this is just my background for today. Just have a look for today what we are going on. Oh, something went wrong with my computer. I don't know what's happened. Now it works. So I was asked to look a little bit more into the background from the perspective of regulation. Then we will come to the scope and the status of the JTC 24 and a little bit to the outlook. Let's start. At least the entire issue of digital product passports comes from the European Green Deal. To safeguard biodiversity, to establish a circular economy, eliminate pollution, and as well to boost competitiveness of European industry. And the upcoming regulations are at least contributing to that. So this means the digital product passport are not just for circularity. This is one aspect. As well for the issue for climate neutrality, but as well for social sustainability, for instance, to protect in front of, for instance, childhood work. So this is really important. This is not just circularity. And based on this Green Deal, we have at least the major regulation, which is now agreed, and Jens had already explained that this is the ESPR, now really approved and agreed, and we hope to have at least this published soon. At the same time, we have a lot of other regulations already ongoing parallel to the ESPR, and one of them is the battery regulation, which already entered into force in 2023. This means every battery for all electrical vehicles, but as well LMT means light means of transportation, means your bicycles, for instance, but as well industrial ones larger than 2 kilowatt hour have to have a battery passport from February 18th in 2027. But there are already other ongoing. There's, for instance, a proposal for the end-of-life vehicle regulation, which should protect us to export old cars to Africa. So this means all of them have one glue, and this is a digital product passport. All of these regulations are mandating or requiring. There is only one requiring harmonized European standards. This is the ESPR, and I will come later on that. What does it mean? But I would like really to recommend to not just wait for regulation. There are already good practices. So it comes from the news from Wednesday this week that Volvo had already developed an innovative battery passport and is already launched this. And here you can see they are already looking not just to the circularity issues as well to other aspects, and they are aiming to at least being compliant to the existing standardization request. Just to let you know, there are companies and best practices that are looking already in before. So looking to the JTC 24, the objective is just to fulfill a standardization request, which coming from the requirements from the ESPR, but as well from the battery regulation. We are approximately 140 experts already, coming from 20 member states plus Switzerland, and it is very well recognized as well globally. So we have request standardization request for liaisons from US, China, Korea, or Japan, and so on. Jens mentioned already the tough timeline. We have to deliver harmonized standards for 8 modules until end of 2025. But there is a planned end of JTC 24 in 2028 because we guess that there will be additional requirements. So let's have a look to the difference between normal European standards and harmonized European standards. Normal European standards have the aim to increase product safety and quality by having lower transaction costs and prices. This is the typical aim, and this is very much driven by the industry in order to be more competitive in the market, more have more advantages by having better standards related to the customer, for instance. The harmonized European standards are at least to demonstrate the conformity regarding a new legislation of product, services, and processes. And they have to be listed in official journals. So still in harmonized standards is voluntary to be applied. So there is no must. But if there is any problem and your product or something like that is not compliant with the standard, then you have a problem. So this is at least the difference between harmonized and normal European or other standards. Looking how this works, this means here we have the workflow. The European Commission is creating regulation, and based on a regulation, they are at least creating a standardization request called SREC. And in a consultation phase, this standardization request is at least assessed by at least consultants and experts in order to have an agreement between CENELEC and the European Commission. And based on that, and there we are today, we have an accepted standardization request by CENELEC, which is now the base for creating these European standards. And based on this European standards, they are then harmonized, means this will come then into an official journal, which is the base for the conformity assessment. So this means here we come to a standard which is still voluntary, but it is like a law. So this means if you are not compliant with the standards, you are in danger to not, let me say, being compliant with laws, and this has at least then consequences. For digital product passports or for products, it has even more, because if you do not have a digital product passport, if it is required, then you are not allowed to bring this on the market. Yeah? And everyone can expel the products from the market if there is no, let me say, valid passport anymore there. So let's have a look to the scope of the JTC 24, because we are here not doing everything. You had already listened, a digital product passport consists on the data and the system. The digital product passport data is at least an issue of every product group, and this is organized differently. So for instance, for batteries, there is a mandate. This is as well a standardization group 579, which is dealing especially with the data and the rules for the batteries. Yeah? And there exist other mandates and other standardization requests for the data. This is a little bit different for the DPP system, because here there exists only one standardization request. So this means we have different standards for the data, but only one set of standards for the DPP system. This means the DPP system has to serve for every product group as it is required by the European Commission. What's inside, we have to standardize how to storage data, how to deal with the data carrier. For instance, here is the QR code, the identifier of a product, of a factory and the economic operator. We have to deal with trust and security. We have to deal with and secure data exchange, and as well the IT services and the APIs, the interfaces to the outside world, but as well inside, and of course all the workflows and data processing. And these standards, as I mentioned already, are mandatory for all different product groups. So looking to the product groups, we have all the ones for which are falling under the ESPR. Jens, for instance, explained already the issues of toys, detergents, construction materials, and even critical raw materials. But under ESPR, there are a lot of others which are at least as well coming into the game. This means we have, for instance, iron, but as well tires or paints. Yeah. So at the end, except food and animals food, all others products and product groups will come step by step into the game. So looking now to the process scope, because we discussed today already, the digital product passport is as well a tool for using or for having the issue of traceability of products. This is true, but for the JTC 24, all the processes, here is an example from the battery, from the mining until the OEM put this into the market, is not part of the standardization. Standardization starts when an economic operator, and the economic operator is the one who brings a product into the market, has to provide the data to a DPP data repository, which has to be decentralized. So in the scope of JTC 24, there is the data access and the data processing, so that a customer, some other stakeholder groups, for instance, the general public, but as well authorities coming from the European Commission, for instance, market surveillance, will have access to the data, but as well, this is relevant for the economic operators and others to update the data, because we will have static data, for instance, when a product was established or produced, or other data like the weight, and we will have as well dynamic data during the lifetime of a product, for instance, the state of health of a battery. Yeah, and for that, the economic operator is responsible to have a valid and up-to-date passport. So, looking now to the organization scope, who should be interested into this JTC 24? And here you see at least a very rough architecture. And you see there are at least 3 different partners and systems which have to be interoperable from the first perspective. This is the EC central service, because on this side in the central database, there will be just all product passport registered. This means there's just a number and some other numbers, but not the data. We will have the distributed DPP system services as responsible the economic operator is. And we had already today an indication, of course, an economic operator can outsource this task to a DPP system service provider. Yeah, and there is mandatory third-party service to be included to perform all the backup. Yeah, this is required because the passport data should be available even the economic operator do not exist anymore. Yeah. So, and around this, we have, this is at least the core passport system perspective. We have a lot of partners and organizations, European Commission, the economic operator, as DPP system and service providers, component suppliers, for instance, the partners in the value chain who have to provide data, the standardization bodies, and of course the consumer organizations. And all of them are at least part of the JTC 24, so that we have at the end a complete set of stakeholders involved into the standardization. So looking to some of our requirements, or let me say challenges, and this is the issue of interoperability, not just between the different systems we have to provide, as well regarding the issue, as we mentioned today already, there will be, for instance, very much accepted standards in the textile industry. We have to support with this DPP system, and at the same time, we have to support, for instance, vehicle industry, which have completely other systems, for instance, for the data carrier and the unique identifiers. So this means we have to allow the coexistence of standards and technologies. They are not just the data carriers and unique identifiers. We have different sector-specific policies and rules. We have distributed data spaces already. And looking from the global perspective, here with upstream and downstream supply chain, we are not alone in Europe. This means we have to deal with the situation that, for instance, raw material comes from outside. And this means the coexistence of the standards are related to the different data carriers, to the unique identifiers we have already in the market. We have to deal with interoperability to the routing to the different distributed DPP systems. Of course, companies today have their data management technologies already in place. And here we have to allow that they can still use their systems and have not to invest into new ones. We have to deal with the cross-domain interoperability between different data spaces. We started, you know, in automotive with that in Catena X, for instance, but as well others come into the game. And so this standardization work in JTC 24 is quite challenging because we have to allow these, so to speak, coexistence of the standards. So looking now to the standardization request, the scope of that, we have 8 modules from unique identifiers down to the APIs for the DPP lifecycle management and the searchability. And this is really from the perspective of the technology. But when you're looking to that, or to these 8 modules, then at least we have to ensure to have an operational system. And for that, we created at least so to speak, standard stack. Comes from the Battery Plus project, but using already an ISO standard as a meta structure from the unique identifiers up to the responsibility and the rules. And next to that, even the data structure, the security infrastructure, IT governance, or even the policy management and enforcement. And for that, in the standardization request ad hoc group, we checked how the different modules of the standardization request can fulfill a complete set of standards required for having an operational system. And then you can see something is missing. And so the European Commission decided to have for all these who are marked with the blue star to create, so to speak, implementing and delegating acts. So we are at least in the JTC 24 in an environment which is very much dependent to other standards and to the activities in the European Commission. Looking now to the timeline, as we mentioned already, there is the battery regulation, which is already in force. It's driving us to have, at least at the end of February 2027, a complete system where everyone in the industry can provide the battery passport. And this makes our challenge even a little bit more problematic, because from January 2024, this was our start, and until end of 2025, this is just 24 months, and all of them who are, let me say, familiar with standardization knows this is very, very challenging. So how we are organized.
Thomas, sorry, can I, if you could start closing, please, because we're going a little bit over time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the extension. We have 4 working groups. One is a strategic advisory group, which is coordinating everything in the other working groups and is very much organized to have the complete framework. We have the working group unique identifier and data carriers, one working group about the entire security, and working group 4 is completely related to the interoperability framework from data storage until the APIs. So I will now stop here, and I hope gives you some insights how the standardization is going on for the DPP system.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Thomas. That was really, really thorough, and it's very important insight, into the work that goes on and the impact that non-compliance to these standards can have, with the product as well. So thank you again, Thomas. There's a couple of questions in the chat. We're going to go now to roundtable. There's Bernard Gindros, who's asking about the previous product groups from the Ecodesign regulation and energy labeling. So if they are going to be considered in the work on standardization. He's also asking about the timeline and transition period for this. I noticed this question hasn't been answered by the speakers, so it could be that could it be that we don't have an answer, and maybe we could try to get back to Bernard?
So I can answer
okay.
Regarding the battery.
Okay.
Yeah, because every product group has at least their own regulations regarding the energy aspects, the energy labeling and so on. In the battery regulations clearly explained that the energy labeling and other labels, you can imagine in batteries you have some others, for instance, critical material and so on, is part of exactly this regulation. Has to be covered by the passport as well.
Wonderful, thank you. That's great, Thomas. Great. And then a question for you, Thomas, from Simon Steer. Are the working groups open?
In principle, yes, but it is dependent on the national standardization bodies and how they are organized, because everyone who would like to become a member of JTC has to go to their national standardization bodies, means in Denmark to a Danish standard. So in Germany, we are now more than 120, so we closed our group. But in other countries, it's up to their standardization body how to organize.
That's great. Thank you very much, Thomas. That's very important to know. I think these practical pieces of information are vital to help people. Okay, now we're going to move to the panel discussion, and I'm going to hand over to Sultan, who's going to be chairing this part of the session, and ask the speakers to turn on their cameras again, please.
Hello. Yes. So we have set up a Mentimeter that is going to be steered by, is it you, Maria?
It's Julie.
Oh, Julie. All right. So I think you should be able to enter this program with the barcode on the left here. And what we're going to do is the participants, we're going to ask you some questions that we would like you to briefly think about and provide your answers and your suggestions. And the panelists are also invited to this short discussion. And I think if the panelists want to open the floors with answering one or more of the questions, you're very welcome to do so. So, Julie, are you on the line? How are we going to do this? Okay. So
people can see and provide their answer on the Menti now.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Two responses. So I'm just going to start with the first one. So are you aware of any standardization gaps in your field? One has answered not at all. There are so many standards. The second one is yes, no standards for the maritime sector yet. And the third response is no. So I'd like just to also to clarify that if you are interested in engaging in the services that HS Booster can provide you, these are some of the questions that the experts in HS Booster can help you with. To, apart from the standards and the standardization deliverables that have been presented today at this webinar, we would be able to find and to close a potential gap in the standardization landscape to figure out, are there any related standards that are interesting for your project to know of? So are there any, one of the questions also says specific ones about swappable batteries for LCAT V8C. I'm not aware of the details of that. Perhaps some of the panelists can also join here. Oh, yeah. Meaning vehicles, yes, makes sense.
There is no difference in the standardization between the swappable batteries and others. Because you have at least the same properties to take into account.
Yeah, many methodologies and standards are under development, and it still needs some time to close all the actual gaps. I think it's meant to be understood as. Yeah. So for some projects, the standards that have been presented here are naturally relevant. And for other projects, there'll need to be a complete new analysis of where to begin standardization-wise. So are there any related subjects that may be relevant for the projects, or is this actually a way, an area where the projects could perhaps be welcomed into a national mirror committee in a national standardizations body to start on new standardization work slowly in areas that are not covered by current standardization? And one has said standardization among file and information exchange between softwares and construction sectors example given BIM to energy simulation software. Yeah, so we're down in the details here. And revised standards will always be needed. That's true. Yeah. So do we have any other input from our panelists into some of the responses that are given here?
Yeah, maybe Thomas would agree or disagree, but from my point of view, indeed we have a lot of standards. And we have not seen any major gaps. What we have recognized is that sometimes these standards do not really fit together, so we have some inconsistencies. And that means there are smaller gaps which needs to be closed, whether by updating these standards or make an amendment, for example. So or have a new version of a standard, a new variant, which is typically done within the series of standards. For the, I'm not sure if Thomas would agree to that one.
I would fully agree. We have even too much standards. So we have the overlappings and even contradicting standards on the technical perspective. On the content perspective, we have still some open items. For instance, how to deal with dynamic data. Though there is something on the specific product group side, but on the side for the DPP system, it's not. There are some slightly issues, gaps. This is because the DPP system, as it is required by the European Commission, doesn't exist in beforehand. So this means how these components are working together, and even the semantics of everything means, for instance, the registry and so on is not defined yet, because it is new and required. But this is not a big issue.
So thank you, Jens and Thomas. I think let's proceed to the next question, so we can better keep the timeline. What are examples of barriers for your technology or innovation, and how can standards and standards development help address these barriers? So if any of the representatives, project representatives, or other participants out there who are aware of examples with the technology that you're working with, do you see how standards could address these barriers and solve it in some way or another? See if there are any responses to this. It's not easy. No. Perhaps we should move on to the next question then.
Maybe also to give a comment. So it's in general we can say it's not so difficult to make a digital product passport. So the challenge is really to make it interoperable and suitable for many different industry sectors and their specific requirements. So therefore, if you have a specific technology for digital product passport, it's maybe hard to answer this question. So the challenge is more in this interoperability amongst the different technologies.
Yeah, thank you, Jens. Yeah, so information barrier from suppliers can be solved by a worldwide standard. Yeah, okay. And the second response is it's complex. Yeah.
There exist already standards there as well.
Mm.
But I fully agree with the issue of complexity. So the issue of ontology on domain data, this is very often let me say, is a question. This is the reason why we have product group specific data standards where exactly these ontologies have to be clarified. And what we have to do is to have an upper ontology so that all the product group related data can be processed by the DPP system.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas. Another response says a clear relationship between CSRD Scope 3, LCA, and DPP.
I think this is necessary because CSRD is not so much, let me say, addressed in the ESPR in the right way, I would say. ACA is this is really a nightmare because still there's so many work for harmonization of that. But at the end, the DPP is just carry the data as, let me say, collected or calculated by ACA. So I don't see really a problem there because the DPP system is just carrying the data.
Yeah, I think this is a topic for the DPP data mainly.
Yeah,
and this will be done by the regulator. So in one of the slides from the EU Commission I showed it was on the left side the DPP system. That's where standardization is active, and the DPP data on the right side where the EU Commission will define it. On the other hand, we strongly encourage the EU Commission to look at existing international standards while defining the requirements for DPP data, because European industry is embedded in global supply chains, and it's strongly suggested to use existing international standards as a basis for this one. But in the end, it's a decision of the policymaker.
Yeah, thank you, Jens and Thomas. I think we can, move to the next question. So this is a bit more broad. How can research and innovation contribute to standardization, and what is the impact of this engagement? So this perhaps requires some knowledge into standardization and what it takes, and what standardization processes entails. But let's just have a couple of minutes to think about this question and see if there's any responses. Thank you, Knut, for that link.
Yeah.
So yes, the panel survey that Knut just led us to definitely will give some answers to this question. It's very comprehensive and a worthwhile reading. So the two responses are, it can help highlight the gaps and come up with solutions to harmonize. And the second one, the bigger the consortium, the higher the chance for adoption.
There are still a lot of issues for research. So one of them I just mentioned is all the issues of interoperability. And this is not just to make this happen as well, to make the cost for DPP, to tear down the cost for the DPP, because currently, based on the estimations we have so far, it is too much, and it is really dangerous, especially for European SMEs today. So this means to make it more simple, to make it more interoperable, it's very important to perform research very fast, because this will be very, very painful for a lot of companies.
It's a very good point. So one of you says, encourage external stakeholders outside the consortium to share their views. And another one is DPP, data exchange could be a subset research and innovation data exchange. Interoperability is a shared challenge. Yeah, indeed. So perhaps it could be relevant to look at what it means to have external stakeholders outside the consortium to share their views. Perhaps we can elaborate on this.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure to understand this sentence. Encourage external stakeholders outside the consortium. Which consortium is meant?
So the consortium, is that on a more general level as an example? Or yeah, I'm not sure I completely understand it either.
I think it refers to a project consortium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but typically within the schedule or timeline of a research project, especially a funded research project, this might be quite difficult. Nevertheless, I encourage all research projects to get in contact with standardization. First of all, to make at the beginning an analysis of existing standards in order to avoid double work, and to also to identify potential target publications where the results could fit in. And in the end, there are some pre-normative publications like a technical report or like workshop agreements, which can be used to bring research results into the standardization area. So definitely, I mean, it's I encourage to talk to the people from the standardization organizations and see case by case. I think there is not a standard recipe. You have to decide case by case.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually an area where the booster can help in terms of a project requesting advice, and then somebody from that technical committee, or even somebody who has knowledge of standardization, can advise the project on that best route, because there are different routes, there are different timelines. Some come with costs as well, but there are definitely doors open to projects, because this is they have a lot to contribute, as we've seen with the various presentations.
Yeah. I think we should continue to the next question. So how can standardization benefit from research and innovation results? I think, Karen, you may have some ideas to this on how to answer this question.
Yes, I tried to address it already a little bit in my presentation, because this question also is linked to the previous one. I do believe, also from my own experience, that there is quite a beneficial interaction between both standardization and our R&I, not only for what are considered established sectors, but also you have sometimes very innovative committees where They're trying to also reflect a lot what is being done in research and innovation. So yes, there is a very large benefit from both sides. And don't be afraid of, you sometimes don't know who you should contact, but like I said, the HS Booster can help you. And people like myself and some organizations, they exist, but they have to be found. Also your national standardization bodies, I mean, you can sometimes find them on the website of CEN or ISO even. You can contact them. And a lot of working groups or technical committees are quite interested in interacting with research projects because, yeah, their feedback also when they're testing standards, realizing that there's problems sometimes with standards, that's very, very helpful for the work.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And the first response from one of the participants is by application of test beds coming from research and innovation.
That's another potential. That's one of the examples I meant when I said we have to talk to each other and see case by case. So sometimes we have very good experience if a project makes a test bed based on an existing standard or even maybe on a draft of a standard. And the results of this test bed are then feedback into the standardization work. And this is very useful. And I think then in that case, both sides can benefit from that one. So that is one of the examples how the interaction could look like. But as I said, you have to decide case by case.
Yeah. Thank you, Jens. So let's move to the next question. So this is directly for the participants here. Is how will you engage in standardization in the future, or how have you already engaged in standardization? So this is the last question of this session. And this is directed to the participants. It goes, it taps into some of the subjects that we've discussed here. Perhaps it has given you some inspiration, ideas, and perhaps it has led you to recognize if you've actually already been doing standardization work without being aware of the impact it can have on your project, or the potential of the work that you've already done in terms of standardization. Yeah. Yeah, so one says we are involved in the Horizon Europe Circles of Life project on a digital product passport for ships. And another one says through material passport, especially for buildings. Yeah. I would like to point out to you who are still participating in the webinar that We have various levels of support, and one of the levels that we do is through me and Danish standards, where we would like to give you a more detailed landscape analysis about possible standards that may be suitable for your project without necessarily enrolling in the first place in HS Booster. So if you would like to have a detailed landscape analysis that is more directed to perhaps related aspects of your projects, you can come to me. I think I've showed my email at the beginning of my presentation. Otherwise, I think it will go in the chat as well. So if you need some more ideas as to where to begin, but you're not entirely ready to enter into an NHS Booster service, we can continue the communication after this webinar. So yeah, there's some comments here. Thank you for these. I'm not gonna read them now that we've gone almost 15 minutes over time. I would like to thank you for participating in this session here at the end of the webinar. And also,
okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Sultan.
Yeah.
That was great, and thank you to all our speakers for staying on there. It's good to hear what the projects are doing as well, because of course that's important input for us, and we'd like to get in touch with you as well to understand how the booster but also projects like Stand ICT can help. Obviously, Stand ICT provides grants to people wanting to contribute to standardization in ICT topics. So that's very interesting. I would like to give a special thanks to all of the speakers who gave extremely well prepared presentations. I think we got a really comprehensive and detailed overview of the digital product passport, the various challenges that exist in standardization, the ongoing work, and we drilled down into different areas, including the battery area and the textile area, with some really nice examples as well for projects which have contributed to standardization activities. I'd also like to thank Sultan for managing the panel and those Mentimeter questions, and I believe we're going to try and keep that online still, so you can continue to contribute. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues Maria Giuffrida and Julia Arteza, who have been behind the scenes organizing and running this webinar. And thank you to everyone who's stayed on. I'd like to wish you all a very nice weekend, and we will be back very soon with more webinars and training activities with the Booster and Stand ICT projects. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.